Today I am reviewing The Long Walk by Stephen King. Now, if you've been following my reviews on YouTube, you know that I've been reading every Stephen King book in order of publication and then reviewing it here on YouTube. By way of introduction, my name is Brian Lee Durfee. I am the author of The Forgetting Moon, published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. And this is my video blog where I review books. Now, I said that I review Stephen King books in order of publication. This was actually, The Long Walk was actually the very first novel Stephen King ever wrote when he was 18 years old. Now, he did not publish it then. He published it later under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. Now, he did this because he had already become pretty famous as Stephen King with about 4 or 5 novels under his belt. And he wanted to see if he could start a career over again as his fellow, as a new writer, and see if he could make it as a new writer without the big Stephen King brand name sort of carrying his books. So he wrote The Rage, Long Walk, Roadwork, and The Running Man under Richard Bachman. And he published them under Richard Bachman. Now, if you know anything about the Richard Bachman books, you know that Rage, the first book that he wrote under the first book that he published under the Richard Bachman name, was the one book that Stephen King wished he had never written. So that is the one book that I will not review on my channel, out of respect for Stephen King saying he wished he'd never written that book. And if you want to Google the history of that book, you will understand why. However, The Long Walk we will review. It was one of the Richard Bachman books. Now, like I said, he wrote this when he was 18. However, he didn't get it published until much later in life. That being said, for an 18-year-old kid to have written this book, oh my gosh, this is an amazing book. And you're going to hear me gush about this book because I absolutely loved it. Now, I also, as I read these books, I am also reviewing the audible.com version of the book. So I'm opening these books up and reading them word for word with the audible.com version. Now, Kirby Hayborn was the voice actor that narrated this book. He did a very good job. Very good. I loved it. By way of history, I read this when I was a kid. This is one of the Stephen King books that I have read a lot. I have read it a lot. Some of my reviews, you'll notice I've only read the books when I was in high school, and then I've reread them for this video blog series. This one I've read probably 5 or 6 times. Love it every time. One of my favorites. Let's get right down to business. The Long Walk, The Running Man, dystopian futures, both involving TV series where people have to fight each other to the death or outwalk each other to the death for TV ratings and money. Now, when The Hunger Games came out, Suzanne Collins was accused of stealing Stephen King's ideas from The Long Walk and from The Running Man, combining them to make her own Hunger Games series, which is a plausible kind of accusation. I mean, there are elements in The Hunger Games taken from The Long Walk and The Running Man, and also from an Asian book called Battle Royale. So, Stephen King did this book when he was 18 years old in the 70s, maybe even the 60s. He was probably 18 years old. So he thought of the dystopian future where people are killing each other for money on TV shows way before Suzanne Collins did. So when the Long Walk movie comes out, which it eventually will, everybody just know that The Long Walk came before Hunger Games, and Stephen King was not ripping off Susan Collins. It was kind of the other way around, although I think Susan Collins did a fantastic job with The Hunger Games, and I highly recommend those books too. I don't think she plagiarized anything. I think it's just an idea that crops up every once in a while in people's heads, and it's fine to write their own version of the dystopian future where people hunt each other and kill each other on TV for ratings. No problem. I have no problem with it. So let's get down to the specifics of The Long Walk and Stephen King's dystopian future. It's in the USA. It takes place in America. And it's a walking contest. Much like the Hunger Games was a contest, this is a walking contest where they gather 100 teenage boys and they start them off at the top of Maine and they have them walk down the freeway, I-5, or is it I-95? Whichever one's on the East Coast, that's the one they walk down from the top of Maine to the bottom of Florida, and they cannot stop walking. They have to hold a minimum of 4 miles per hour at all times. If they break that rule and dip below 4 miles an hour for any reason, they get a warning from a group of soldiers or several groups of soldiers that are on half-track army sort of vehicles kind of surrounding the walkers, the 100 walkers. And that's what they're termed in the book, is the walkers. So these soldiers all have rifles, and they give 3 warnings. If somebody dips below 4 miles an hour, they give warning 1, warning 2, warning 3. 30 seconds go by. If they haven't picked up their pace, they kill the walker. And that's the contest. And people watch it on TV. People line the freeway from Maine to Florida to watch these walkers go by, hoping that they can be there when they can get to see someone get shot. That is the premise of The Long Walk. It's an interesting premise. And you think, well, how interesting could it really be to read about teenage boys walking along the freeway? Yeah, there's the violence of them potentially getting shot that makes it a little interesting. But I'm telling you, the drama that happens between this group of 100 boys as they make this walk is riveting. You can't look away. Everybody that I've recommended this book to has read it in 1 sitting or 2 sittings. No more than 3 days because it take you to read this book. This is the paperback version. Like I said, The Long Walk, Rage, Roadwork, and The Running Man were all published by Richard Bachman. You can also get a big version like this of the Bachman books that has all 4 in it. I've also got a little paperback over there you can see. But I suggest getting each book individually. This is about 300 pages, and it flies by. It'll be the funnest thing you have read in ages. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. Absolutely guarantee it. Now, why is it interesting? It's not because guys are being hunted, walkers are being hunted, and if they slow down, they get shot in the head or the gut or wherever the marksman decides to shoot them. It's the drama that takes place between these walkers that makes this book so fascinating, because you have got a group of boys, teenage boys, with all their angst and all their teenage problems, and you're putting them together and you're forcing them to walk and outlast the others and hope that the others get killed, but then they develop relationships as they walk, and they develop friendships and enemies, and it's just full of all the human drama that Stephen King puts in his novels so well. I mean, these boys, they're amped up they're teenage boys. They are thinking about sex even on this walk. As they walk past all the cheering crowds, they notice every cute girl in the crowd, and they comment on it. They comment to each other about the girls, and they tease each other about the girls. They bully each other about the girls and about all sorts of things. This is like sending teenage boys out on a long walk and seeing what's going to happen. And the drama is crazy. It's crazy. It's interesting. It's gripping. It makes you laugh. It makes you hurt for the boys. It makes you cheer for the boys. I mean, ultimately, this novel, it's just an allegory of life. Just when you think you have to quit and give up, even if it means your death, some of them just keep going, no matter how painful it is. And it's a walk. It's a walk. They can't stop. They can't sleep. They get food along the way once a day, but they have to keep going. They cannot sleep. And if they get injured or if their feet hurt, they just got to keep going. Some of them even start crawling. It is that intense. I'm telling you, this is one of Stephen King's greatest books. And, every boy that goes on this walk is given a number, Garrity, our main character, kind of, he's the one we see the walk through. He's the narrator of the walk. He's given number 47. Some of the other players in the novel, we've got McVeers, Stebbins, Baker, Olson, Barkovich. They're just kids of all different sizes and stripes and personality types. Some of them are tough guys. Some of them are wimps. Some of them they don't belong on the walk, and some of them are prepared for the walk. It is just fascinating. This book, The Long Walk, written when Stephen King was 18, that he was published under the name Richard Bachman. Now it's all of his Richard Bachman books are re-released under his Stephen King names. So you can find The Long Walk anywhere under Stephen King. You don't have to look for Richard Bachman. But this book, and I've been doing this video series for a few weeks now, and we've done maybe 5 or 6 of the books. This is the first Stephen King book, one of many, that I am going to give a solid 10 out of 10 stars. I rate books 1 out of 10. This is the first one that gets an absolute solid 100% recommended 10 out of 10 stars. Everybody I've recommended this book to has loved it, has read it fast, can't stop talking about it. You need to read it. You need to talk about it and share it with your friends. This is amazing. And the film rights have been purchased, and they're gonna probably be putting together a film pretty soon, and it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be amazing. I know the guy that did The Shawshank Redemption bought the film rights and turned him over to another director that he really thinks will do a really good job with this. So I'm excited to see what this looks like on film. I mean, it's gonna blow people's minds. It's like the Hunger Games dialed up to, stun, past 10, past 11. I mean, it's dialed up to stun. I mean, it is that great. 10 out of 10 stars, people. The Long Walk. And remember, I end every video, every book I ever write, I dedicate to Stephen King, Motley Crue, and the Oakland Raiders. Stephen King, Motley Crue, and the Oakland Raiders. Every book I write, I dedicate to them because they were the 3 most important things to me as a youngster. And The Long Walk I read as a youngster, and I loved it. And you need to read it too. Here it is, so you can see The Long Walk. Everybody go out and buy it. Stephen King's The Long Walk. 10 out of 10.